Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this little chat today, which I hope you're going to find incredibly useful. I've been mainly focusing on my blog on sort of career and business topics, very much looking at life and career transitions from the perspective of the work and finding fulfilling work and so on. But I've realised in doing so and in interviewing people, including Amber, who I'm with today, and going through my own transition and working with clients, that there are so many things going on, whether that's health and relationships, love, family, and so on. And number one on that list is really money. So I'm really happy to be talking to Amber Berry today. She's a certified money coach, and I'm hoping that she can give us a few tips on how to identify and overcome those obstacles that sort of get in the way of our goals and of making these sort of career and business transitions. So welcome and thank you so much, Amber. Could you maybe just tell us a bit more about what it is you do and who you work with?
Sure. First, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure. But yeah, I'm Amber. I'm the founder of feelgoodfinances.com, and I'm a certified money coach. And specifically, what that means is I work both on the behavioral and mindset end of dealing with money, but also on the practical side, looking at the numbers and cents, making sure your budgets are where they're supposed to be in terms of what you want to create in your life. So that's mostly what I do right now.
Great. And I remember, I love that name, the Feel Good Finances, because it is such a sort of an
Thanks.
uncomfortable topic that we maybe inherit difficult beliefs from our parents or it's just something that a lot of us don't really want to deal with. So I love that sort of emotional side to it. And as you said, both the mindset piece and the concrete tips, which is really helpful.
Yeah, it's something that I personally discovered was somewhat of an underserved area in terms of the
Mm,
personal finance space. Because you can always go to someone like if you need an accountant or you need someone to help you with your investments. There's all different kinds of ways people can help you with the numbers and cents. But in terms of the behavior and your feelings, it's kind of this awkward
mm.
space that a lot of people aren't really focusing on because it feels unfamiliar. And so it's something I'm really looking forward to exploring more as I build my career.
And maybe people feel a bit embarrassed too, because we feel like we should be on top of it, and it should be, that should be sort of easy and so on. It's just that, yeah, you get the accountant and the bookkeeping and so on, but really the other stuff is sort of left unaddressed, I guess. So, I guess with that in mind, what are the biggest issues or concerns that you see people facing when it comes to money?
The two biggest things is like broadly mindset, but then underneath that, I find fear-based decisions being like the most commonly problematic things that we all do. And we all do it. So
Mm,
like instead of focusing on finding ways to make more money, we're focused on not running out. And so we'll do things like stop
mm,
spending money, we'll cut back and like really deprive ourselves sometimes. And it's because we're afraid that we won't be able to make more. And so instead of trying to figure out, well, how can I prove to myself that I can make more and that there is more money available, we just focus on cutting all the corners until we have nothing left.
mm,
And that's generally not sustainable. Eventually, you're
mm,
going to get to zero. You can only cut so many expenses. And the other thing is just like feeling like only certain people have access to wealth and abundance in general. Like,
mm,
if you've never seen it in your life, you think, well, if I haven't had it, I'm never going to have it. But that's not how it is. It
mm,
can just feel that way. And so we just sometimes put ourselves in positions where we can't advance or we can't grow our lives to
mm,
be the way we want them to be. And then more on the numbers side, it's just feeling like it's really confusing, and a lot of the times the way it's taught, if it's even taught to you, because a lot of people
mm,
don't get exposure to it, it can seem very overwhelming, very complicated. And so something that I really strive to do is make it very simple because it doesn't have to be complicated. It can
mm.
be. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And so just try to make it more digestible for people and not feel like you have to have a PhD in finance to understand what your options are and to make
Mm.
well-informed choices.
Well, that's so interesting. And your first point as well, it sounds like it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you're a bit afraid of it and you think, oh gosh, I'm not going to make enough money and I don't really know what I'm doing, then you kind of pull away from it. You don't learn anymore. You don't try to generate income, as you said, and you're actually sort of making it worse for yourself, which is a shame. So, yeah, I mean, certainly we never learned anything at school and university about how to manage our finances, personal or business, and I think that's quite an important topic for all of us. So it would be good to see that sort of added to curriculum, I think. But happy to hear that you're addressing addressing those with people now. So why is it so important to address those sort of, in particular, the mindset blocks, I suppose, when we're working towards our big goals, making that big career transition maybe, or building a business?
Yeah, so just on the personal side, when you're trying to do something that's going to make you different from everyone around you, like let's say you grew up fairly middle class, but no one around you like owned a lot of real estate or they wanted to be an entrepreneur and build their own business, that's going to make you different, and it's going to be really challenging when the time comes for you to really start separating yourself, and not in the sense that like you don't talk to them anymore, but your life just looks very, very different from theirs. It can make you feel kind of alone. It can feel scary. It can feel like you're leaving what you've always known. And so it's important to understand that you can have both, but you're going to meet resistance also from the people in your circle, because they're going to think, they may say things about you like, oh, she thinks she's better than everyone else. She's too fancy to hang out with us now. And it's not what it is. It's just you see different things for yourself, and you are entitled to have whatever you want in life. On the business side, if you don't work on these mindset things, you'll end up either really underpricing yourself, which if you're trying to grow a business, you have to make sure that, that all of your expenses are covered, for one, otherwise the business isn't profitable. You have to be able to, confidently state your fees. And it's not that you're necessarily scalping people, but if you're providing good value, you should be paid good money for it if you're good at what you do. But that can feel very weird, because when we're at a job, whether you show up there and you give it all, if you're there for a certain amount of time, you're going to be being paid. So when you're building a business, especially like a passion project, where it's like really an extension of you, it feels really weird to put a number on something that's like part of you. So it's a lot of different things you never think about unless you decide to take that one other step, outside into this new world. And so, if you don't really address the inner parts, you'll find yourself blocked, and you may think that you can't be a good business person, or you can't actually make a business that's successful, but it's just that you accidentally set yourself up to fail in the sense that like you didn't charge enough. That's why you're struggling to keep your business flowing, or you don't have, you haven't figured out the best way to package your products or services so that people can really want to work with you. And so it's not that you're not valuable, it's just you have to be open to change and open to flexibility along the way.
Yeah, and I guess that sounds very familiar to me, and that sort of fine balance between, as you said, people sort of thinking, oh God, they're so arrogant because they think that they deserve so much more than me, or they're, you're charging too high a price, and if anything, we then pull back and we're like, oh no, we sort of put ourselves down in a way, and we don't communicate a message that, especially when we're creating a business for ourselves, we're really passionate about this and we believe it's an important message. We are helping people, we're creating value. And then, as you said, the tendency is to sort of undervalue our services, to put much lower pricing, especially when people inevitably come to you and say, oh, that's too expensive for me. Then you begin to think, oh my goodness, I'm being greedy, and so on. And I guess compared to also a full-time job where, yes, we sometimes negotiate our salary, but I think women especially don't do that so much. And, you're given a salary, that's just assumed. Whatever work you're doing, whether you've done an amazing presentation one day, a pointless meeting, or, just played on Facebook all day, you'll get your salary. So it's a very different situation when you're creating your own, as you said, packaging your services and products and going out there and putting yourself out there. So, very familiar and very, very tricky, I think.
Yeah, for sure. The pricing part, and especially when you hit that first person you meet and they're like, that is so expensive, I would never pay for that. And so, like you said, the first thing you think is, oh, I should lower my prices. And really what you should do is go find people who can really see the value in the work that you do, and they will appreciate you and they will pay you gladly. And depending on what the product or service is, branding yourself as like the cheapest thing or cheapest person out there isn't always exactly what you want to do. It's tempting and it makes sense, but in the long run, it's not necessarily what's going to take you to where you're trying to go.
Yeah, no, you'll never win that battle. I guess you're just fighting to the bottom, and then you also won't be able to live the life you want to live, which is the point of the whole endeavour in the first place, I suppose. So I guess before getting into things we can do, why do you think this is? Where are these sort of beliefs and blocks coming from, do you think?
A lot of it comes from things that we've experienced as young adults and children. Like when you're growing up, and some of these things we learn, they're not always explicit. Like your parents don't necessarily tell you like rich people are evil, but they may say things or act a certain way. Like say you're watching TV and you see like the Kardashians or something, and you make a comment based on like 5 minutes of their life that you see on TV, and they're like, oh, they're so self-centered, they're this and they're that, I would never want to be like those rich people. But really, we don't know them. You just saw 5 minutes, it was edited, And so if you hear people saying things about wealthy people, it'll make you internalize that as, oh, wealthy people are bad. And so you'll put up things in your life unconsciously so that you don't become a wealthy person. You'll make sure that you don't seek higher opportunities to be paid, like in work. You probably won't start a business because you're like, well, if I become really wealthy, then I become that really bad person. When really, if you're a bad person, you're a bad person. It doesn't matter if you're rich or not, kind of thing. Kind of thing. And then also like the ways we handle money. Like when I was growing up, my parents, they love buying cheap stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. Like I love going to the dollar store. But sometimes like quality is definitely worth the higher investment. Like where I went to school, we mostly ride bikes over here. And I remember the first bike I bought, I got the cheapest one I could find, and it broke like 2 months later. And I was like, now I have to buy another bike. And then that second time I spent, like 2 or 3 times the amount, but the quality was there and it lasted for several years. And so like trying to kind of stretch yourself into figuring out like what's really best for you and not necessarily following what's always been kind of impressed on you intentionally or not, can be really, really difficult. But once you figure out like what's important to you and what really fits with your life path and your true values, that's where you can really start to take yourself in the direction you're really trying to go. It's difficult. First you have to figure out what they are, which is a lot of times we're not even aware of these things. But once you figure out what it is, and if it's no longer serving you, how you can create a new idea that'll really help you out.
So questioning those beliefs and sort of reframing them to something more constructive that's going to help you along the way. But that first point about wanting to be wealthy, though, is quite an interesting one because and I guess, again, because there's so much talk now about purpose-driven companies and, we all have this mission and we want to create an impact. And actually then it feels really greedy to say, like, I want to be rich or I want to earn lots of money. And it's silly because if you sort of deconstruct that and strip away the value statement, it's just, I would like to earn X amount for the work that I do in order to live my life or whatever, right? It's not to say that I want to be a Kardashian, also not to judge them based on the very little I know about them. But it is interesting just hearing that. Already lots of ideas come into my head about sort of the beliefs and assumptions I'm making around that. So, and thinking people will judge you, which is always a fear, isn't it? So thinking you'll look foolish or arrogant or whatever it is. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the other thing with the passion and purpose-based businesses, we find a lot of people kind of falling into like that starving artist kind of philosophy where they're like, if I create this from myself, this is like my passion. I don't care about the money. But the other thing is like at some point you do have to care about the money or you'll starve. And that's not fun. It's not, some people feel like it's honorable to be, I guess, have very meager means. But at some point you also have to take care of yourself. And if the things you make, whether you're a traditional artist, like you paint or you draw, those things still provide great value to the world. It's just kind of, again, it's that weird thing of like, this is such an extension of me putting a price on something that feels like a part of me. It seems very weird. But it's still important to consider that though it is a passion project, it still provides great value. And so you should be paid well for the stuff that you do.
Yeah, that very integral link to you is an interesting one too, because I guess it's easy then to take it personally. When people don't buy your services or they say that you're too expensive or something, then you think, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy, or, because it's me, it's not just some PowerPoint presentation I've done for the business. It's really the core of what you believe and your stories and your vulnerabilities.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've listed lots of issues, I guess, and beliefs. So what can we do? I guess starting from the mindset piece, what can we do to start to address these behaviours and to overcome those sort of fears and concerns?
I think the very first thing is figuring out what your core values are. Whether, let's say, you enjoy being able to donate to charities or you want to really give back to your community in any way that is. Whatever they are, figure out what those things are and what they're really important to you. And then once you know that, figure out what the ideas and feelings and beliefs you have about money and if they're going to line up. And if they don't line up, go with your values and figure out what you need to change to make your values happen. In general, this is just my personal belief, but your spending and the way that you handle money should reflect your values. And if your beliefs don't match your values, make them. So it's going to take some time to readjust. But once you can really get to that point, it starts to fall into place after that. And where a lot of people get stuck is like they start to change their beliefs and change their values. And then when they're ready to take action, they get stuck because they feel like they should know all the answers. We live in a very kind of DIY kind of world where people say you can do everything on your own, which you can. But in practicality, sometimes it just makes more sense to pay someone to do something in, you know, an 18th of the time instead of going with that honorable, I'll figure it out on my own and take 2 years to do something. So like you have your values, say you want to move forward to starting a business, you don't know how, you don't have to know how, you just have to be willing to find a person who can support you and give you the feedback you need and the structure to do what you want to do. And then after that, just continue to seek support. So one thing I think seems that I thought, this is something I personally thought, and I find that a lot of other people think, is a lot of successful people, they just woke up one day successful on their own when it's like, that's not what happened at all. There's a long road. Took a lot of support to get them there. And it continues to take a lot of support to stay where they are and to continue to grow. And so don't feel like you have to do it on your own. There's lots of people out there who enjoy helping people get to where they want to go, which is perfect for this passion-based economy we're in right now. So yeah, those are my 3 things that I've noticed have been really helpful for myself personally and other people.
Yeah, no, really important. I mean, that point about comparing yourself to other people, I always see that we compare ourselves to people at sort of the height of their success, and you don't realise they've been blogging for 15, 20 years, or they've been, as you said, a struggling, starving artist for many years, and also they may project an image of success, and on the inside, it's a different picture. I think we all have struggles and insecurities, even if we don't necessarily communicate them. And as you said, asking for help, I think, is a great piece of advice. I love the values piece too. It's something that certainly was something that was important to me as I've gone through my sort of transition and building my business. And it's something that I just don't think we do. I mean, when I first heard values, I was like, oh, it's a bit sort of airy-fairy. It's very odd, like what values? Like what does that have to do with anything? But it's interesting and such a sort of eye-opening experience in a way when you realise what it is about, let's say, money that's important to you. It's not the money, it's X, Y, Z that you can achieve with money, or you know, what it is you're trying to create in your business. So yeah, 100% agree, and some great advice there. You mentioned also sort of the packaging, your services and so on. I mean, we can't talk now about sort of your perfect branding and marketing strategy, but do you have any guidance there when people are undervaluing themselves and struggling to know how to do that pricing piece?
One thing that trips a lot of people up when they're trying to figure out what an appropriate level to price their services or products. For products, it seems like using kind of market research and figuring out generally what would people pay for a product like this is usually really helpful. But when it comes to pricing a service, it's very kind of hard to nail down. And when you go and do research on like what other people are charging, you have to be very careful. It's good to kind of get an idea of what the going market rates are, but you can't, again, like you were saying, like comparing yourself to others is very, very, it's a slippery slope, because once you start doing it, you may start to question a lot of the ideas you have and wonder if they're good enough. And so if you're not sure, you can just do like maybe for a short period of time, like do a tester, figure out, okay, how do people feel about this price point? How do people feel about this price point? But don't go into it assuming that, like, always wanting to price yourself at the very bottom, again, because you don't necessarily want to brand yourself as like the cheapest person out there. But you always have to take a really, really honest look at what you bring to the table. Like, sure, maybe there's one person who would charge half of what you were intending to charge, but maybe you have more qualifications, you have more experience, or you have a very unique perspective that makes you stand out from the rest. And so when you're pricing yourself, especially as a service, be very careful. Like, see what the market rates are, but figure out what your unique position is and who you're trying to serve. Like, if you are planning to serve high net worth individuals, then you don't want to price yourself really cheaply, because they're going to question your value. If you're trying to go for like everyday people, middle class, or like students, it would be great to find a way to package a low cost service for students, because they generally don't have a lot of money. And so it really depends on your audience as well. So those are a couple of considerations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess there you can have sort of different offerings potentially. If you're worried about not serving the low income, then you can offer them, as you said, like a DIY version or sort of a lighter version, I guess, that still fills that need. And I think it's also sort of a process of learning, isn't it? Because when you first start out, you think, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm charging $100 for this or something. And then after a while, you realize, hang on, that's too low. And really, you build your confidence and you realize what people are, as you said, a little bit of what other people are charging, but really more about the value that you're creating. And you, as you build that confidence, hopefully you can sort of raise the rates. And I guess that's important to remember. It's not set in stone, is it? And certainly online, you can very easily increase things, yearly, if not more often. So
Yeah, for sure.
okay.
I agree.
And I guess my concept is all about the one step outside. So it's one step outside your comfort zone, but I like the idea that it's one step you can take today and not just this huge long action plan that can be overwhelming, sort of one big leap. So what's the one crucial step you think that people can and should take to, either improve their mindset or ultimately to achieve success despite all these money beliefs and blocks?
I think the one thing that will really take you all the way through is just really being true to yourself and what's important to you. Because there's going to be a lot of, if you Google, let's say, budgets or how to start investing, you'll get thousands and thousands and thousands of results. And it's really easy to be swayed by all of these different opinions and all these people saying what works best for them. But as long as you know like what you're comfortable with and what your values are, it makes it very easy to figure out what kind of coach would be best for you because their values align with yours, or what kind of investing strategy would work best for you because you know what your values are, you know how much risk you like, things like that. And so really staying true to what your values are, what's important to you, what you like and what you don't like, really helps you filter out all of this information and know which kinds of people you need to listen to and who to follow. So yeah.
That's so powerful. And I think it's so easy just to sort of be tempted to get impatient and want to jump into action and run around and do stuff. But I love that sort of taking a moment to hang on a second, sort of who am I, what do I stand for, what's important to me, and that, as you said, will then sort of unlock lots of other decisions later on.
Yeah.
Great. And you have a worksheet that we're going to be linking to in the bottom. So could you tell us a bit more about what that will do or will help people do?
Oh, sure. So I made a workbook for you guys. It's 6 steps that I personally use frequently to really keep my mindset and my also practical money management together. So yeah, it's a workbook that I go through every now and then, working on limiting beliefs and really telling myself the truth about the numbers and things like that. And it's also got like a short 5-minute audio training to help you guide yourself through it all. So yeah, hopefully it's helpful for you and kind of getting started and figuring out what's important, where you are right now, where you need to go.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for your time, for answering my questions. I think it'll be really valuable. As I said, it's such an important and yet, I guess, uncomfortable and unfamiliar topic for many of us. So it's great to get started with these tips from you. So thank you so much, Amber.
Yeah, no problem. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.